Mashle, Magic and Muscles has quickly become one of my new favorite series, so much so that I have all the manga volumes behind me and I've actually finished reading the series, and as much as I love the action, comedy, and story of Mashle, which I'll definitely loop around and talk about more later, there's one aspect of it that I've really wanted to talk about since I finished the first season, and that's how it tackles the value of life. For some context, the series takes place in this fantasy world where magic is everything, and it determines everything from your social status to whether or not you even get to be alive, since being a lack magic is a crime punishable by death. Enter Mash Burndead, a young man who's got absolutely no magical power of his own, like absolutely none, but he is super shredded since he hits the gym every single day and keeps up with his routine. Mash lives out in the woods with his adoptive father Regro as a way of protecting him from the very society that would kill him for not having magic. Until everything goes off the rails when Mash has a run-in with the magic police, is essentially forced to go to Easton Magic Academy, this universe's Hogwarts, and become a divine visionary or be executed by said magic police. And this series continues on from there, following Mash's journey through magic school and his path to becoming a divine visionary. Now, you may be thinking, isn't it a bit harsh to kill someone just because they can't use magic? Yes, it is. But before I fully answer the question of why that's so harsh, we have to know how this system got built in the first place. And a slight side note before we continue on, Mashle doesn't give a number on how many people are lack magics, like how My Hero says 20% are quirkless, so while there isn't a definitive number to help sell the severity, based on context and details given throughout the story, you can infer that it's a decent amount. In the world of Mashle, magic is something that most everyone can use. It comes almost as naturally as breathing, and is even used for the most basic of tasks like cooking or holding a cup. Magic is seen as a gift from God, so thus anyone who doesn't have magical abilities is lacking that divine gift, and according to the ruling class, should be exterminated so as to not contaminate the world with their inferior genes. And here's where the first problem crops up. The ones who set the rules and enforce them are magic users themselves, and are the strongest amongst them on top of that, so they really have no stake in changing the status quo. The Bureau of Magic, led mainly by the Divine Visionaries, has set the precedent that those without magic should just be culled from society, and everyone's just kind of okay with that, since, a little eugenics never hurt anyone, right? It's a very holier-than-thou approach to society, because why would those who have magic and thus aren't affected by these rules care what happens to those who don't have magic, these people who they see as lesser than them? And we see this a lot in the series since it is the central plot point and one of the main hurdles for Mash to overcome. When he's at Easton, he gets scoffed at and persecuted by the other students after they find out he's a lack magic, despite everything that Mash does for them. Even after stopping Abel and Selwar from practically destroying the school, they would still snitch on him and despise him for not being like them and hoping that he gets the full punishment of the law that he deserves. The general population is absolutely okay with people like Mash getting killed, because in their mind it's survival of the fittest, and they're so caught up in their own selfishness and egotism that they can't truly understand that what they're doing is evil. Now, of course, not everyone thinks this way. Mash's friends obviously don't, and even vow to keep his secret, despite knowing that it could result in their expulsion from Easton or other dire consequences, or both, but they're able to see past those stigmas because of Mash's character and let his actions define him. For Lemon, it was when Mash came back to save her during the entrance exam, despite her trying to trick and deceive him for her own gain, which of course also made her fall in love with him, but we don't really talk about that. A similar thing happened with Finn, someone who intentionally bullied and othered Mash, albeit at the behest of a bigger bully, but then felt remorseful of it due to Mash's unwavering kindness towards him. And of course, Mash came back and stood up for Finn because he knew deep down that he wasn't a bad guy. And the one who relates most to this topic, Lance, someone who's experienced firsthand how cruel and broken the system is. And their fight isn't really anything too crazy, since it ends with Mash telling Lance he's not a bad guy, and then Lance sticks around and, stays with the main group from here on out. Lance's sister Anna was also a magic user until she got an incurable disease that strips her of her magic power and will eventually lead to her parents turning her into the government, presumably to be killed for her lack of magic. This is another way that the story tries to hammer home the serious depravity of the system. Now, to play devil's advocate for a second, Mash was born without magic, so he didn't receive God's blessing at all. But what about someone like Anna, someone who was born with magic and lost it due to circumstances outside of her control? Why should she have the same fate? And the fact that her parents would even go along with the idea of sending her away to the government is just insane, and also what prompts Lance to want to become a divine visionary, since they basically make all of the rules. He understands the perspective of those without magic through his first-hand experience, which in turn makes him a lot more sympathetic to someone like Mash, and one of the reasons why he sticks around with the main group. Another brief example that's somewhat similar is Abel's spell that can drain people of their magic and render them a lack magic. So what about those people? If Lemon had all her magic stolen away, would they execute her? And the answer is probably yes, since the justification would be, well, she wasn't strong enough to defend herself. And you're starting to see why this is so bad. Outside of Mash's friends, though, there are plenty of others who recognize that the system is broken and in desperate need of reform. You know, people like Wahlberg, who've been around since the beginning, or even current divine visionaries like Rain or Rio. Those latter two visionaries both are more open to the idea of accepting someone like Mash if he can prove himself and stand on his own merits, which is something that stands in stark contrast to Order Maddle, this Harry Potter wannabe who is hell-bent on protecting the rules and leaving absolutely no room for Mash to make his case. Order's whole point is that order must be maintained and rules are rules. He believes that we cannot make exceptions to these rules or we run the risk of losing the order trying to be maintained, and he and many of the other visionaries believe that those without magic don't get an opinion on the matter, since they don't meet the standards set for humanity as they're lacking that divine blessing from God. Now, Order does eventually concede and defer Mash's execution to a later date unless he can become a divine visionary candidate and prove himself an asset to stopping Innocent Zero, showing that Order does see Mash more as a tool than a person. And as time goes on, Mash proves himself to the other visionaries and even other people he encounters like Macaron, who's at the pinnacle of magic but still lost to just a really buff lack magic dude. The general public has a long way to go before they could ever accept someone like Mash, because stigmas and discrimination on this scale don't just disappear overnight, and even if they did, you'll always have people who never change and think that lack magic should be culled from society as to not tarnish it. The idea of removing the undesirables from society is something that unfortunately has been done in the real world. People like Hitler, who wanted to exterminate those lesser than the Germans in an attempt to create a perfect society, or Margaret Sanger, someone who wholeheartedly believed in eugenics as a way to eliminate the mentally or physically defective. And I can't discount slavery or segregation either, these systems that were put in place to keep black people from ever having a true place in society since they fell into that category of undesirables. The truth of the matter is that in Mashle with lack magics and in real life with eugenics, slavery, segregation, or however you want to put it, it's all wrong. No one life is any less valuable than another simply because of your race, gender, nationality, or even your ability to use magic. A quote-unquote perfect society cannot be built on the blood of the innocent who never had control over their circumstances. As Christians, we believe that every single person is created in the image of God, and every life is a precious gift that deserves to be protected. Psalm 139:14 puts it best by saying, "I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made." So when I watch a show like Mashle, it's this mindset and belief that helps me look at the culling of lack magics and say, hey, that's wrong, because it is this eradication of innocent people over things that they can't control. Mash just wants to live peacefully in the woods with his dad and enjoy time with his friends, and he shouldn't be treated any differently just because he can't use magic. You can absolutely believe that magic is a gift from God, but the problem comes in when you use said gift to trample on and destroy the lives of others because you think they're lesser than you. The value of a human life isn't derived from physical things like status, power, finances, or even your ability to use magic. The value of life comes from the fact that you were created by a creator who loves you, and that is something that can never be changed. Honestly, I never thought I'd get this deep talking about Mashle, this anime that's meant to be a comedic battle shonen where One Punch Man meets Harry Potter, and even outside of this, I think Mashle is a pretty solid series if you take it for what it's trying to be. There's a lot of heart packed in, and most, if not all, of the fights are resolved through the power of friendship, but that really stems from the idea that not all of your enemies are truly evil, just people who got led astray or made some bad choices. Mash treats everyone equally in the sense that he'll beat you to a pulp if you're doing something bad, but then turn around and offer you a cream puff and want to be your friend since you're probably not a truly evil person. He offers people an opportunity for redemption should they choose it. You know, people like Abel and Abyss who did bad things and then got their comeuppance for it, but then were also invited to the celebratory party because they chose to reform their ways. Which in and of itself is yet another Christian virtue that can be taken from the series, because Matthew 5:44 says, "But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you," and this is exactly what Mash does with the enemies he runs into. Lance, Abyss, Abel, and many others later on, people who others may scoff at because of their past actions, but Mash welcomes in with open arms, hoping to be friends, and most of those characters don't know how to respond to this unwavering kindness aside from genuine shock. It's something that no one has ever done for them, but is also what sets Mash apart from everyone else. Someone who's been othered by society, told he should be executed for being a lack magic, and has no place at Easton, holds no grudge against those who hate him. Mash just wants to have a ton of friends and get along with everyone, even if they don't like him at first. Mashle, Magic and Muscles is a series I can't recommend enough if you haven't seen it already. Aside from the things I've mentioned in this video, it is really funny. It has some great slapstick style humor that translates over from the manga really well, and the anime tends to crank it up to an 11. There's also some really great action. The fights are well choreographed and animated, even if it can be like JoJo's at times where you just gotta turn your brain off and enjoy it, which there's nothing wrong with that. Not every series needs to be deep and complex like Attack on Titan or even My Hero Academia to a certain extent. Shows like Mashle can be great because it's simple, easy to understand, and is just plain entertaining. I'd also like to mention that Hajime Komodo clearly did his research on human anatomy, because how Mash's muscle magic works is incredibly accurate to reality. He gets down to specific muscles, workouts to build them up, and even gives attacks really cool muscle-themed names. Not only that, but it also gets me motivated to work out and just be as swole as he is. With all that being said, I shall end things here. If you liked this more in-depth video essay, let me know in the comments. I want to do more like it and really dive into these topics. Also, let me know what you think of this standing setup. It's a little different from the other videos. Usually I'm sitting like right in front of where I'm standing, but I got a new light for Christmas thanks to you guys and all of the support from the channel, so I'm able to do this different angle. So let me know what you guys think of that. And while you're down there, you can subscribe so that you don't miss any of my future videos. And as always, a huge shout out to all the channel members this month. Your support means the world to me and helps me continue to make great content like this. If you want to watch more, you can check out one of the two videos on screen, one being about Windbreaker and how to give fighting a purpose, and the other being what the YouTube algorithm thinks you'll like. So I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.